Cropsy, which was not known before we did the film, has become like if you want to talk about like urban legends that came true in Staten Island or even New York, like when you do they do like the map of urban legends, like Cropsy's the guy.
They always say, have you seen Cropsy? Have you seen the documentary? Have you heard about it? I'm like, oh yeah. I was like, it's got, like you said, it took on a life of its own.
You started the 2014 Staten Island clown phenomenon.
So we were kind of doing a social experiment, so to speak, of if we put something out there, can we change the narrative and really make something pop and get people to believe in this, whatever this story was going to be.
Communities basically attributing the horrors of their daily lives to mythical figures, to clowns. Hey everybody, Josh Zeman here. Welcome to Sinister. Today we are going to the dark side. We're going to talk about urban legends, the Cropsy mythos, phantom clown scares, the movie Terrifier, and my hometown of Staten Island, New York. Very exciting. And joining us down this rabbit hole is filmmaker Michael Levy. Now, in 2010, Michael started a production company with his brother Jason and Steven Delasana called Fuzz on the Lens. I met Michael many years ago. I think it was around the time that we did Cropsy. And Michael, you're going to have to fill me in on some of the details because I'm old and I've done way too many drugs growing up on Staten Island. But Michael is a director, having done a film called Abnormal Attraction. He's probably most known, I guess, for starring in the cult classic film Terrifier as Will the Exterminator. He was one of the producers on Terrifier 2, which is one of the top box office successes of 2022. Terrifier 3, correct me if I'm wrong, highest grossing unrated horror film of all time.
That is correct.
Wow, that is a huge accomplishment. And he just directed his second feature called Stream. Michael, it is great to talk to you. How have you been?
Josh, I've been good. I'm super stoked to talk with you. Yeah, it was many years ago that we met, and it's really cool that it's coming full circle now. And always happy to talk about what you're up to as well, and Staten Island. And I'm just excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Oh, of course, man. I mean, it's kind of interesting because we haven't really gone into the whole Staten Island thing, but I did Cropsy, which is kind of like a narrative documentary cult classic, and you did Terrifier, the Terrifier series, right? Which is the kind of narrative cult classic in the horror world. So it's kind of interesting that we get to talk and that we knew each other and we kind of get to talk about Staten Island and all this creepy, weird shit.
Yeah, it's exciting. And yeah, I mean, it's really great. You know what I mean? Like I definitely, when I first met you, really loved your work and followed it closely. And, now to have my own kind of success is really, really cool. And I just want to just say first and foremost, thank you also for giving me the time. Because when we met, I was, no one from a hole in the wall, and you were very gracious and, spoke with me and, gave some great advice. You actually helped us out with our very first entertainment lawyer, which was pretty cool. Yep. And, can't thank you enough for that. So, it just goes to show the kind of guy that you are.
Oh, thank you.
So definitely happy to be on the show today.
Well, how could I not? You're from Staten Island.
Yeah, we got that connection.
We have to stick together, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Other Staten Island filmmakers, let's go.
Well, I mean, I could easily start with Damien Leone, Terrifier director. So
yep.
Cheated there.
Well, no, you can't cheat there. You can't. Right. So I should have mentioned this. So basically, how many people do you have in Fuzz on the Lens as the production company?
So there's 3 people that are actually involved. It's my brother, Jason Levy, and then our partner, Steven Delasala, that you mentioned, we founded the whole company. And then there's a bunch of people, obviously, that work with us very closely and collaborate with us. But there are 3 actual members of Fuzz on the Lens.
Right. And so first of all, when did we meet?
We met, it had to be like 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, maybe 2012, 2011, maybe 2011. It was in that area.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And where were you guys in your filmmaking career? You had just started making horror films, right?
Yeah, we were gearing up. We hadn't made a feature yet. We were doing a lot of short films at the time.
Right.
I was still in college when we met, and my brother was either just out of when did he graduate high school? I can't remember. He might have been just out of high school. My brother,
Farrell?
when we met Farrell, yeah, because that's
Yeah.
how we ended up linking up, because you were doing a class at Farrell with Ralph Giordano, the film
Yep.
teacher there.
Yep. Yep.
And so we had come back to visit, and he was the one who linked us up with you and Barbara.
Right. And you guys were in the back of the room, right?
Yes, and we sat in on the class. So that was I guess that was around that time, 2010, 2011. So yeah, I was almost graduating college at that point. I graduated 2012.
Holy
So
shit.
yeah, our company was formed, but it wasn't even formed officially. We were calling ourselves Fuzz and the Lens Productions.
Yeah.
But we weren't, we didn't have an LLC. That happened 2012. That happened a little after that. And then we started gearing up to do our first feature, which was Abnormal Attraction, which was like a horror comedy
Right.
film. And that's where we asked for your help with Anita.
Yep. Lawyer Anita Sheridan, who's great. And it's I gotta say, I love it when like people from the hometown do so well, so, but wait a second, before we move on, let's get back to Staten Island filmmakers.
Okay.
James Foley,
Right.
At Close Range, and Fear, At Close Range is fucking amazing, obviously.
There's also James DeMonaco,
James DeMonaco, right? Who did
the Purge franchise.
Right? I mean, between you and him, Blumhouse could make a fucking ton of money off you guys.
It's funny. Blumhouse comes to Staten Island often too, obviously because of James and the Purge. I found out, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, have they approached you yet?
No, I don't know what they're waiting on. They have not, though. I've spoken to a few of them, like Ryan Turk, who's over there. I've met him in the convention circuit.
Yeah.
But they haven't. They never. It's always just friendly. You know what I mean? They never really. So who knows? Maybe they think we're doing just fine. But we definitely would love to work with Blumhouse.
Oh, there you go. Well, Jason, call these guys up.
Right.
So I mean, but listen, the thing that about Jason and how he does so well is those are on a tight budget.
Yep.
Like, they don't call it the van for nothing. He drove around in that van. We're not talking, trailers or anything. We're talking about the dude doing back, out of the back of a van. Yeah. So there you go.
And he has a very great, he's known for that very great system of, he figured out a formula within that budget range to really know how to crank them out and, make his money back. And obviously look what it turned into, this crazy empire.
Exactly. So you went and you were making short films. I remember that. And then you made your first film that you directed. And then how did the whole Terrifier thing happen?
So on that shoot of Abnormal Attraction, we had this guy who was doing our sound, but he was really more than that. He was like a post-production supervisor, and he was friends with this guy who just retired from Wall Street that was looking to get into making films. And that's Phil Falcone, which is, anybody knows Terrifier World, that's Damien Leone's partner now.
Right.
He's the guy who put the money up, and he's obviously much more than that. But so he was getting into movies, and he asked if he can come to the set to visit, just to see how indie film works. And he's getting ready to do his first film, which was called Joe's War. And he's got family in Staten Island. He used to live in Staten Island. He had, I think his sister taught at Farrell or something. She was at Farrell. So it's another one of those connects. Yeah. And so I said, yeah, of course. So he came down and he just really loved what we were doing. So he invited us to be a part of his feature film, Joe's War, that had Amanda Sante and Ed Asner and Tom Sizemore. So he had like
all the hits.
Yeah.
All the hits.
Cool little group. And so we were there, and it was Damien was working on that, fellow Staten Islander, and it was there we all kind of got to know each other. And it was his son that says Damien's looking to make a feature out of this short film that he did called All Hallows Eve, where there was this clown, Art the Clown, that had a small little part in it. And there was a little fan base, this cult fan base, that started to follow and say, there's something with this clown here. So then he was going forward with making the feature. And then from there, we all just got close, and we were cast in the original one, myself, my brother, and Steve Della Sala, because again, it was all just friends kind of working on this thing.
Yeah.
Phil, produced it, and then it took off from there. The rest was history. We became producers on part 2 and 3. I was the assistant director on part 2 and 3, and now we just we work on everything together, all of us.
All right, so let's get to the real questions. So how much money did Terrifier make?
So the first one, I don't know exactly, or I don't remember what the first one was, but it did well. It made its budget back like 10 times. And the budget for Terrifier 1 was very small. It was
Yeah.
like $40,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very small. And then I think what blew that up was when we went to Netflix, people started finding it. And, that kind of brought it to another level. So then when we did Terrifier 2, it was on a budget of 250,000 and we made $15 million.
Holy fucking shit.
Yeah, it's crazy, crazy. And it was like, it was a whirlwind. We did not expect that. We knew it would be, do well with our fan base. We knew that we had something that we liked and we thought was pretty cool, but we never in a million years imagined that. So then from there, we upped the budget again and we did Terrifier 3 for like 2.5 million.
Yeah.
And it made over 100 million at the box.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wild. Absolutely wild.
That's amazing. By the way, there's a cool old film story that I love. You ever see the movie Billy Jack?
No, actually.
It's a great. Oh, you have to see this movie.
Okay.
It's bonkers. It's like a 1970s like hippie guy, but he's He's like a karate guy, but he's a karate like hippie, and he kicks ass, but only like if people mess with him, And so he's in this small town, and everybody's like, "Hey, Indian," or something like, "You and your hippies, get back there." And he just kicks their ass.
Oh wow!
But,
all right.
and it was like a stunt guy, and there's a little bit of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Right. Supposedly, this guy, and he made this film Billy Jack, and it was one of the most successful independent films of all time. And it was this just cool weird 1970s like. So anyway, go see Billy Jack.
I will.
Weird. That is amazing. So now is the world your oyster? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, now it's basically where we were trying to call people and get meetings or, get ourselves known. Now they're calling us, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
And as soon as we say, if we're trying to, get in with somebody, as soon as we say who we are, or what we've done, it's immediately like, oh, no problem. So that's the cool part about it. There's a lot of actors that probably would have never looked at us before that are now calling us to work together, which is interesting, to have that happen. But, for the whole thing, for us, the best part about it all, and I know it might sound a little cliche, is like, we're just super happy to be a part of something that means something to fans. Like for like us, like we had movies that we loved growing up and meant a lot to us. And that's why we got into the business. So to be able to do that for a new group of people, young children and young people that are getting into this, that's, I think, like the most cool about the whole thing. To see others inspired by what we're doing. And then to hear that they believe that Art the Clown is an icon, I've been fighting it for years. Damien too, saying, "Oh, that's up to you guys to say." Like, it feels like an imposter syndrome, but it's definitely happening. Like, he's up there now with Freddie and Jason and Michael, and it's very surreal to even comprehend or even think that.
Now, so this is like the cool part of our talking, because I have the same, not obviously not to the level you have, but like Cropsy, which was not known before we did the film, has become like if you want to talk about like urban legends that came true in Staten Island or even New York, like when they do like the map of urban legends, like Cropsy's the guy.
Yeah.
And, we never meant for that to happen. We just it was just this cool old story. And suddenly it's institutionalized. It becomes this thing, and you're like, wow.
And I hear about your doc all the time, obviously because we're from Staten Island. I think people also like to bring it up too, but they always say, "Have you seen Cropsy? Have you heard that? Have you seen the documentary? Have you heard about it?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." I was like, I know Josh. I'm like, he's great, great guy. And so yeah, it's brought up a lot, and I see it all the time too at horror conventions. Obviously it's got, like you said, it took on a life of its own, and it blew up into this incredible documentary piece that people still to this day refer to.
Well, it's just so interesting that we have both these kind of like iconic things that we've created both in the narrative and in the doc world, and how these things just take on a life of their own. And that's very much why I wanted to talk to you, because I wanted to get into the Cropsy mythos, that mythology of stories that we heard when we were growing up in Staten Island. We had heard of the Cropsy urban legend from going to Pouch Camp, But that story of the Cropsy maniac goes way back earlier to Jewish sleepaway camps in the 1950s and 60s, and that's where The Burning came from. Like The Burning, which is an early 1970s horror film.
Yep.
Weirdly, by the way, produced by the Weinsteins, and they got it from their sleepaway camp. And when the children started going missing in Staten Island, and they started attributing those missing children, attaching it to this urban legend, but making it their own, right, calling him Cropsy, that there was that. And that had come from the JCC camp that was right there, the camp that behind Wagner High School.
Right. Yeah.
And then the thing that like made it all real was the abandoned Willowbrook mental institution buildings.
I would have never guessed there were the amount of weirdos living on Staten Island.
There might be somebody on your block. There might be somebody you work with.
Here's this guy going around picking off these kids.
I can imagine how other parents, even if your kid's gone for an hour, I can imagine how they must feel.
That's probably one of the last things that you ever think about, that somebody would take your daughter.
That's still there. That building is still there.
Bro,
Crazy.
How are those buildings still there? It's crazy.
Yeah, and again, but that also added to the lore of it all. It's like, what is this abandoned building? And everyone's sneaking in and taking pictures, and and we all did it as kids. We all were fascinated by it, wanted to sneak in, wanted to see it. And to this day, there's still kids that I know that like are in high school, if I visit FAR or whatever, that go there and they check it out. And I think your doc now also might enhance that too, that they want to go check it out.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Barb and I, as like kind of just like a fun gag, we went back on Halloween like 3 years after Cropsy came out, and suddenly kids were like, "Oh yeah, Cropsy, don't you know the story?" And they would regurgitate the story, but it would be slightly different, and that's what I kind of loved about it. But now you could almost bring in Terrifier, as part of the whole thing. Like that, those stories are going to continue to grow as the icons grow.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, for sure. I mean, it 100%, and it's funny. Like, I don't know if you even, I'm sure you're aware of this. Like Staten Island in general has a very haunted history, and I made a thing back at that time, which is funny. Remembering this now was, I did a short film for high school, for college called Haunted Island. And
I think I remember that.
Yeah. And we had Ralph Giordano a part. Yeah. So we but we touched upon obviously like the Kreischer Mansion and Richmond Town and all of that. Bailey Seaton Hospital.
Bailey Seaton.
Super haunted. We shoot a lot of our stuff at Bailey, actually. So,
oh, do you?
Yeah, a lot. They're really open to filmmakers. They're very friendly. We shot a lot of Terrifier there. Right. Every movie that I've ever done, we try to find a way to go shoot at Bailey Seaton.
Of course, like, hey, let's go to the old hospital.
Yeah. It's got a great look. It's like a little backlot there. But there's so many different haunted places. I had a book somewhere that was literally called Haunted Island, that had all the stories and all the things in Staten Island that are supposedly, ghost sightings and things like Willowbrook, the pond, the Wolf Pond Park, and all that.
Wolf Pond Park, yeah. But then you had the real things that made it real, like Wolf Pond Park is Beagenwald, or like like that serial killer. You had Albert Fish, a real life cannibal on Staten Island. You had all this stuff, and it just kind of all mixed together. And then you had the garbage dump and all,
right. And then you don't know where everything kind of fits in, because like, why is this the story, right? And then it was like the Kreischer Mansion, for example. There was the murders there for the the mafia crime family, and there's also this haunted history about this guy who was jealous of his brother's house and killed him and buried him in the floorboards and burnt the other one down. And it's like all interlocked.
That's the whole thing. It's like you can have the urban legend, but then if there's a real event that kind of helps like solidify it and kickstart it, that's what's so interesting. So the ones that are stickier, the ones that have this event. Now to take it even further, I've heard that there's a film called, what is it? The Willowbrook Tapes?
Yes.
So tell me about that.
So a couple of my buddies are putting together the Willowbrook tapes, and they're talking about they're doing it in like the cult kind of things that are going on, and they're exploiting, again, like you did with Cropsy, and trying to tell that story. But it's also, from what I understand, also with them and talking with them about it, it's also like a derivative again of these stories that we've heard over and over again, like Cropsy, that have these bits and pieces that are all taken, and
Sure.
then you don't know what the lore is. It kind of grown into this thing, like you were just saying with the kids, right? They're regurgitating back, but it's like telephone. It's slightly different.
Yeah.
And now again, it's kind of hitting ground. It's running with it. There's signs popping up now all over the place. Again, is it promotion for the movie? Is it actually, just happening, coinciding, kind of like what we did with the Staten Island clown? You know what I mean?
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I figured we were going to get there.
We're going to come on. We have to get there. So, but let's just step back for a second. So, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Staten Island has always had this because it has land, basically, because Staten Island was very underdeveloped for so many years. And it's this interesting thing. Like if you come from the city and you're born in the city, like Brooklyn, Queens, where a lot of people before they moved to Staten Island were from, if you had a piece of a woods, it was usually like a lot,
right?
And in the city, that's where bad things happen. They happen in the lot next to the one lot where the house burned down or something like that. So when all these people moved from Brooklyn and Queens and they saw all this greenery, they were like, holy shit, bad things are going to happen.
There's a lot of bad things going on here.
Exactly. Because it's so big. But then there were bad things because previously to that point in New York City, that's where you put the mentally ill. Yeah. You sent them to the country, but the Staten Island was the country back then. So you sent them to Staten Island. That's why it had a poor farm. That's why it had tuberculosis. That's why it had, even Mount Loretta, right?
Yes.
Huge orphanage. So all these things that you kind of pushed away that you didn't want society to see went to Staten Island. So then when everybody went back, they freaked out. Now, the other thing is that what do you have in a lot of woods? You've got stories about devil worshippers. We had a shit ton of devil worshippers in Staten Island.
Yep. I remember just across the street. So I live in Newdorp area, and there was across the street in one of the schools that are there, there were devil worshippers throwing a cow's head in the dumpster, and they lit it on fire. And this was, I remember as a kid. Now, again, I don't know how true the whole thing. I just remember the incident. I remember the story circulating around. I remember it was in the advance. But yeah, there was a lot of devil worshiping stories as a kid growing up, for sure, that I remember.
Sure. The question is, was it that, or was it everybody just listening to Metallica?
Exactly right.
which is half of what it was. But there was some interesting things, and people like, oh, did you know the Church of the Process was at Willowbrook? And I was like, yeah, I knew that they were at Willowbrook. That doesn't mean they're like, sacrificing Down syndrome kids. I'm sorry. Like, that's not what's happening.
I know. Well, everyone always likes to take it this extra step.
They always love to take it. The whole thing with Andre Rand, who's Cropsy, there were all these. Here's like an interesting way in which this becomes real. I had spoken to the detectives who went and interviewed Andre Rand to try and find out where he theoretically buried these children. Right? Very tragic and sad thing. But the pretense of why they went to interview Andre Rand is they went they were like, oh, we want to talk to you about some of the devil worshiping stuff that's going on in Staten Island, because Andre Rand was very kind of like a Christian soldier type of thing. So they used the devil worshiping story to get in there to gain his trust, to find out what he had done. And there's a lot of like police reports and transcriptions that have been gone around. So what happens is people read these transcriptions and these police officers talk about devil worship, and then they think it's real, not knowing that was the pretense of why.
Right. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's
yeah.
Wow.
So, they're like, well, did you know about like sacrificing kids? And he's like, no, I didn't know anything about that. But people will still, they want to believe these creepy things. They want to think, it
just makes the legend more interesting and more crazy. And then also it's a campfire story. And you talk about that in the doc, how they're, yeah. So 100%.
Absolutely. Okay. So now let's go to a different campfire story, because I didn't say this in your bio, but this is absolutely one of the most mind-blowing things. You started the 2014 Staten Island clown phenomenon.
Right.
Correct. That literally, like, So you've got two, by the way, buddy. You don't just, you're associated Terrifier, which
And they're clowns. They're all clowns. So
and they're all clowns. Okay, you're right. So it's really just one. So tell me about this viral stunt that became a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah. So, it's all started where the idea came about where it was all the stuff in the news, right, is always bad and it's always crazy. And it was about drug overdoses are big on Staten Island. And that was a lot of what we were reading. So we were kind of doing a social experiment, so to speak, of if we put something out there, can we change the narrative and really make something pop and get people to believe in this, whatever the story was going to be. So we sat around and we said, what is something that we could put out there that people will argue about and, have strong opinions on? And we kept going around circles, and clowns, for whatever reason, came up. We said people love them, and there's a serious fear about clowns as well, like chlorophobia. So if we put this clown out there, we believe that there'll be enough people that hate on it, there'll be enough people that love it, make fun of it, that it can kind of take off. We thought, and then we said, and then we'll be the ones to find the footage for the first time, right, in like 3 months.
Right.
It was 3 days. This thing was viral everywhere. There was like paper that somebody sent me from Milan, Italy, that says like USA or New York City goes crazy with clown sightings. I mean, this thing exploded. And all we did was we put our clown out into certain spots in the middle of the night where people can see them, take pictures, and then start talking. And it was funny that the story grew so much beyond what we were even initially anticipating, that there was news outlets interviewing people that had seen the clown in certain spots that we know we were not there.
Of course.
And it was the clown did this and the clown waved and the clown, said something. He spoke. What did he say? And it was like crazy how this story, again, like we talked, grew into something, crazy. But yeah, that was the initial start of it. And then it was also to showcase, like, again, in this social experiment of we can entertain, the world where it's not just film. It was our own, kind of character that we put in real life.
Sure.
And then again, we also wanted to use it to kind of put ourselves on the map and who we are. And it did just that. And we ended up finding an investor to fund our first film, Abnormal Attraction, partly because of our Staten Island clown stunt, because they said, this is a great, viral marketing thing that's kind of happening. And they said, you guys, clearly can, kind of insert yourselves into mainstream. We'd love to see what else you can do. And that's kind of where it all started from with the Staten Island clown. And to this day, it's still, talked about. People still, and people that don't even know it's us. We necessarily didn't really want to reveal that it was us.
Sure.
What happened was there was a lot of investigation going on. There was the Staten Island Advance started camping outside our houses. It was crazy that the cops, I have a lot of, obviously, Staten Island. I know a lot of cops and family members that they said that they were, PBAs out trying to find out who the clown is and who can get them first. And like they were stalking out train station. It became this huge thing. But the reason why we also revealed it, and we revealed it earlier, was because there started being clown sightings that were popping up across the country that were kind of following suit with what we were doing, but they were doing it with weapons, and they were chasing people, and like it became a little more of a threat than the fun that we were doing. I just felt that we needed to separate ourselves from that. But at the same token, like with our clown, it was just, and I think this is why it was so compelling, is he was just holding a balloon. It was simple. There was no knife. There was no blood. It was just, what is this all about? And then the stories start to circulate and start to say, well, is he just there to be creepy? Is he there to entertain? Is he going to steal your kids? Is he going to and then all these stories started coming out because we didn't give a definitive thing he was doing. He wasn't holding something threatening.
Some new information on a story we've been following.
Developing in our newsroom right now.
Reports of clown sightings.
Clowns.
Says if anyone did see someone dressed as a clown on campus.
Investigating another clown sighting.
Creepy clowns.
Eerie clowns menacing cities and towns.
Clown phobia is now sweeping campuses across the country.
Clown hysteria that's been going on all over the country.
People are dressed up in clown outfits.
Nothing else better to do than dress up as a clown.
About 30 kids come up to me and say, did you see the clowns in the woods?
I think clowns are smarter than people think,
The clowning around has to stop.
So I want to make sure that law enforcement is doing the right thing.
Police are increasing patrols in the area where the clown was sighted.
There are already clowns that, will address it and handle it accordingly.
But his no laughing matter.
That's right, Bob.
And to me, that's the point. That's why it worked is because you didn't, and this is something like a lot of filmmakers and storytellers need to learn. It's like you don't give everything. You let people fill in the blanks. If you give them everything, it's like Jaws. You don't reveal the monster. The more you can hold off, the better it's going to be. And sometimes nothing is the best answer, right? Less is more. Yep. I tell it all the time.
Because people love to fill in the blanks, like you said, and make it relatable to them. And if they have those gaps, then they're able to do that and fill in, that's why there's this movie I love. It was very similar to, what the hell was it called? A horror movie. It was this thing was in the wall and it was whispering to the child. And it might be Don't Look in the Basement, whatever it was. And the whole movie, I loved it. I said, this is great. Like, you didn't see the creature. You maybe just saw eyes. You saw a shadow. And and my brain was filling in what this thing could look like. And I was petrified. At the end of the movie, they ruined it. They showed you what these things look like. And it could never live up to what I'm sure everybody was thinking in their own heads. And I went, it cheapened everything.
Yeah. Yep. I sometimes, like, first of all, so many horror films die in the third act. That's the problem, because you build, it's all about tension. And then when you have to, do the release, everybody's like, oh.
Yeah, because you can't live up. You can never live up to what someone else, because it's all individualized. It's all personal.
Yeah.
So like everyone has a little bit slightly different interpretation. If you're able to keep that and still not reveal, but get the payoff, then that's where you can have a really successful, horror flick.
Absolutely. So the crazy part of this story is that right at that time, I had done this kind of like thing for Chiller, which was we went and looked at urban legends that had become real, like Cropsy. And one of the segments that we did was phantom clown scares in Chicago. And, this phantom clown scare thing. And I was like, oh my God, these guys jumped on the phantom clown. This is so good. Phantom clown. So here's the story, right? 2008, phantom clown scares in Chicago, right? People are seeing children and adults. The whole crazy thing was the adults were like saying they saw it, but they didn't really see it. Just like in Europe, right? It's one thing for a kid to be like, yeah, I saw a phantom clown. It's another thing for an adult to lie about it, right?
Right. What's the placebo effect? Maybe maybe in their head they thought they might have been what's the Mandela? You ever hear of that?
Yeah, the Mandela effect. Yes, of course.
Maybe there's something in there.
Totally. So in 2008, people are seeing clowns driving around in white vans, and we all know white vans is from the earlier 80s. So it's basically the clown fear mixed with the pedophile fear comes together for clowns driving around trying to snatch kids in white vans, right? Reported on the news. Everybody's freaking out. Nobody can find any evidence. But what's really cool is it happened in Chicago previous to that in 1991. And this was all over Chicago. And this is pre-internet. The whole thing to me that's so interesting about the phantom clown scares is the pre-internet. You're talking the only way that kids could share this story was talking with each other, and it would be in like a Hasidic neighborhood, and then it would be in an urban neighborhood. Nobody could figure out how this happened. And it even happened in like Cabrini Green. Okay. And we all know Cabrini Green, right? Yep. Cabrini Green is, you should know Terry Todd, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Right. So
but that's wild that it happened first in 91 in Chicago. And then years later, now you're like, it happened in 08? That's wild.
And so you have the Candyman thing coming in there, which is, by the way, another true story of like really happening. But here's the crazy thing. It actually happened in 1981, 10 years before that. And in 81, nobody could figure it out because everybody in the 90s said, okay, the 90s, Poltergeist and It, right? So kids watching movies, and then doing it. But in 81, none of that was around.
And I don't even think the novel was even around. The novel was mid late 80s.
So why did it happen in 1981? And so the idea is maybe that's John Wayne Gacy. We're getting really deep, dark shit. But here's the thing. 1967, California. 1980, Newark. Boston, Providence, Omaha. 1985, Arizona. Latin America, Mexico, mid-90s. how does all this clown phantom sightings happen internationally pre-internet?
Right.
It's
wow.
Creepy.
That is creepy. And that, I wonder if that's also like, because if you know it too, right, Steve, I wonder if Stephen King kind of picked up on this a little bit, even if subconsciously, because it comes back every certain amount of years. You know, it was the 50s, and then it was the 80s, and then it was the, you know what I mean? Like, it was whatever, every 27 years, the clown comes back, right? So I wonder if there was something there that he didn't even realize he was tapping into, or maybe did some history about clown sightings and under, you know, through newspapers. I don't know, but that is definitely wild. And maybe it just also goes to show the fascination that we've had over all these years with clowns and why they're so popular, why the Staten Island clown popped. There's something there, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the fake smile over you. You think you're hiding something with this phony, you know, and it's just intriguing, you know, so intriguing to people. Or maybe there really is a phantom clown going around. They just keep coming back.
Yeah. Well, you know, the
aliens.
The interesting thing is, like, they say what happened is, you know, basically you used to go to a circus, the Big Top, right? And you would sit in the row and you would see the clown from like 200 yards away. And he had a huge exaggerated face, but that was because you were so far away. But then when you took that clown with the exaggerated face and put him on the TV, Bozo, basically, it was too big. It was like too garish, and then became weird. And it's like, okay, so basically, like, it started to freak people out when they brought clowns like into their homes. I mean, listen, if you want to go crazy, there's the story about Capturing the Freedmans. You ever see that documentary?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's a crazy documentary about, family. It's wrapped up in the dad who may be a pedophile in Great Neck in the 1980s.
Give me good homework. You give me good homework to
in the 1980s. But and the filmmaker who did that, Jarecki, he wasn't originally making a documentary about, you know, these kind of, you know, family that had been ripped apart by this pedophile scandal. He was making a documentary about birthday clowns, and he meets this one guy, and they're sitting down talking, and the birthday clown's like, well, I could tell you actually a totally different story that will blow your mind. And he's like, sure. And the clown starts to tell him about his father, who had been convicted of being, you know, arrested of being a pedophile, how his brother had been arrested, and this whole scandal. So there's just this crazy thing. And this was the #1 clown performer in New York City who had this really dark story.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's also that idea of clowns, you know, in entire communities basically attributing the horrors of their daily lives to mythical figures, to clowns. And then they get to do that. And then, of course, we've got the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, the Joker brings it full circle. Heath Ledger dies, you know.
No, it's wild. I mean, it's wild. There's even like this story. I think it. You probably heard it, because I think that they took some of it for what He Knows You're Alone or something, where like the myth, though, where it came from was like there was this babysitter in the house and would get the call, check on the kids or whatever. But there's different versions of it, and one of the version was she goes in the room and there's a clown doll or something, and then she tells the parent, "Oh, I covered the creepy clown doll." She goes, "We don't have a clown doll." And it was like a little person that was dressed as a clown hiding in the kid's bedroom. So and there's so many like these stories that, you know, that come out of clowns.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre. And of course, you know, even the Joker before that, you know, the man with the smile, you know, it just goes on and on and on. And then it's just like, you know, the idea is that the clown is our flip side personality. He's the guy who doesn't care, you know. Oh, look at that.
I was just gonna say, what the hell is that?
That was weird. He's the guy who doesn't care. So like, you know, he's like, oh, you know, all we need is a little push, you know, that type.
Right.
So, wow. So, and it was interesting, by the way, I want to tell you, you know, the reason we did Cropsy was because I was trying to make my narrative feature, and I didn't have enough money to make the narrative feature about like missing children. And so Barbara and I were walking through the woods, and we went to Willowbrook, and like, it was all just there in the woods. There was this little swing, you know, like the abandoned playground that Willowbrook used, and everything was like, and you know, there was like a tree growing up through the merry-go-round. You know, it was super creepy. And so we just were like, okay, let's just do a doc. And so much like you, where you just did your first movie for so little, we did that doc on the weekends, you know?
Wow. And then look what happened, right? And then it just takes off, and like, you know, you never know. That's what it is, but you have to push it. You have to pursue it. You know what I mean? And you have to just find a way to make it happen. And you did that with the doc because you wanted to get this story out any which way, whether it was narrative or, you know, not that way. And that's why, you know, it became successful, I think, also because you were so passionate about it as well.
Well, look at you, you know, you guys did, wait, tell me the middle one, how much, Terrifier 2, what was the budget?
Terrifier 2 was $250,000. The first one was $40,000. And then we got to the $1 million in 3. Yeah.
And what was the box office for 2?
2 was 15 million.
16?
15.
15.
Yeah. 15 million worldwide was, yeah. It's crazy.
And then has your number, like has your ratio been going up? It's gone up, right? Because 2.5 to 100, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So now how big's your next film going to be?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I know Damien wants to go definitely crazy with part 4, and you know, he's got a lot that he wants to do with it. So we'll see. When he calls, we'll talk about it.
And are you guys going to shoot it in Staten Island?
So all of them have been shot. At least the first one, very little, was shot in Staten Island. The second one, a lot. When Monsignor Farrell was in there, there was a ton of places. The third one, all Staten Island. We shot at the Staten Island Mall. We shot at Bailey Seaton. We shot at what's that? Snug Harbor. Shot, St. John's University, the one on Staten Island that closed. We went there as well. I'm an alumni of St. John's, and they were closing, so we went and talked with them, and we got to use the campus. So if we can, I always like to shoot on Staten Island.
Me too.
I think we've got so many great looking locations that could be anywhere in the world.
That was my thing. You know, when I did locations in my production days, I was like, oh, we got to go to Staten Island. They're like, what's in Staten Island? I was like, it looks like fucking everywhere.
I know. And there's parking. So that's the big stuff.
Like Splendor in the Grass, that unbelievable movie, like shot in Staten Island, like Nebraska, you know, Staten Island for Nebraska.
Yep.
What is another urban legend on Staten Island that you want to tell?
So so the one that always got me was the one on Bedell Avenue. Was again, it was about a murderer that was in the area, and that that he killed. I think he killed his bride and then hung her from the tree on Bedell Avenue, and that you can, and then it turns into the ghost thing, right? Where it's like you could still see her hanging there. And then but the funny thing is that's like one of the versions of the story I heard. Then I heard another story that she hung herself because she couldn't live with the man. And then there's another story where it has nothing to do with a bride or a husband. So it's like all of these things. But Bedell, I remember growing up, was like, you don't want to go to Bedell Avenue. You don't want to go over there.
Really? Bedell Avenue was the one?
Yeah. That was one of the ones. You know, Kreischer Mansion, obviously we talked a little bit about. That was one of them. And then there's this house, believe it or not, I can't believe I've been saying this on the air. There's this house on Richmond Road. I saw it on a documentary, what was it? Those like Discovery Channel or something. And they were talking about Staten Island, and they were talking about this woman. It was the same kind of married thing. Maybe people just shouldn't get married on Staten Island. I don't know. It was this house on Richmond Road. I don't know. It's called it's not the Billop House. It's some house on Richmond Road. On the right-hand side, if you're driving towards, the North Shore.
Yep.
And it's this old ranchy looking white house. And the reason why I can't fully explain it, because I won't look at it. I literally will not look at the house. I get chills every time I drive by. My wife makes fun of me and laughs. I look the other way every time we go. And it's because I saw this story about on Discovery that, like, you know, the ghost or whoever in the house, after she murdered everybody in her family, she stands in the window. And if you see it, like, I don't know if you're next or whatever, but like, I just will not.
That's
ever.
Hysterical.
And this is years. And I don't know why. It's just, I saw it, caught me, and I just won't look at the house.
Oh, we also forgot about Jacob's Ladder being filmed at Seaview, which is fucking terrible.
There's so much stuff though. Even like the Adjustment Bureau was shot on Staten Island.
Sure.
Assault with Angelina Jolie.
But I'm talking like famous horror.
Horror. Okay, yeah. Well, how about this one? It's Tom Hanks's first movie. Was shot on Staten Island.
Yeah.
And the filmmaker was from Staten Island. I can't remember his name, but I did an interview with him a while back. And they shot in Highland Shopping Plaza at the movie theater there, where the old movie theater.
I remember that movie theater. Where I saw Goodfellas.
Yeah, yes, that was that, and that's where they shot Tom Hanks's first movie, which was a horror film.
Wow. Yeah. That's so crazy. Yeah, the Jacob's Ladder, like I remember walking through Seaview and like they're like, first of all, I can't believe that stuff is still there. How is that stuff still there? How are those buildings like it isn't like the liability alone for having all those buildings standing there.
I don't even, is it because it's considered landmark at this point?
Yeah, that's the issue. That it's landmark, so they can't destroy it. They can't take it down, so they have to find somebody to basically, find another way to use it, but nobody has enough money to like change them around, to save them, right? So they're just like, it's like rape centers basically, or like whatever it is, I mean, if you go to the one, the graffiti is intense.
Yeah. Well, because it's decades and decades of just different generations going in and out of there, putting graffiti on there. And that's an interesting thing too, of all these people in their teens at different points of life that go in there, and then they add whatever pop culture is going on at that time, graffiti style or whatever.
Yeah,
that's kind of interesting too, the history of that.
Right. Like you'll see, like I remember there was the old Metallica 666, like Sympathy, something Ride the Lightning or something, and then it would like move to like rap a little bit, and then it would, and then it would move
and it's
like
crazy because it's like all probably kids around the same age, but just from different generations and decades that are going in there. That's kind of wild to think about.
Yeah. Do you think, and kids are still going in there, right?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Kids are still going in there. Like I said, I talked about it with high school kids recently.
Wow. I remember the other reason we did Cropsy was because what's that, Blair Witch had come out, and I was like, oh, it's such a great idea. Maybe that was something that kind of influenced you in terms of the viralness of what was going on. And I was like, I bet you I could do something just as scary in real life, because I had seen that Geraldo footage.
Yep.
Which is just terrifying footage.
Terrifying.
Terrifying,
absolutely.
And by the way, Geraldo had done that original. The other thing about Geraldo is he had done that first Willowbrook thing in the 70s, and then he did all the devil worshiping in like the 80s, so he really bookends Staten Island.
Yep. Yes.
All right. So what about all of our other Staten Island filmmaker friends? Have you guys, is Pete Davidson going to be in your next Terrifier 4?
It was funny. He's a huge Terrifier fan, Pete Davidson, and we just shot on his boat because he bought the ferry. And we just shot Screamboat. We shot a horror movie, Mickey Mouse. Well, I can't say Mickey Mouse. Steamboat Willie, horror film, because it went into public domain. And it's a comedy horror, and we shot it all on that boat. And there's stories there that like old workers were telling us that that's haunted too, down in the boiler room. And so that was interesting. But yeah, Pete's a big Terrifier fan. Also, the Impractical Jokers.
Yes.
All Q and Murr are great friends, and they're super into horror. Murr's making horror movies now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So everybody's doing horror movies on.
Everybody's jumping on the horror bandwagon.
Jumping on the bandwagon. Yeah.
There we go, Michael. It's been absolutely great talking to you so much, man.
Oh, same here, brother. Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Anything you want to plug before you go?
Just if anybody gets a chance, if you're Terrifier fans, check out our film stream. We also just put out a short film, Leprechaun Revenge. They're looking for a director, and I'm a huge Leprechaun fan. And so we shot it the fans were saying me and my brother should do them. So as a thank you, we went and showed what our tone would be. And we just put it out there. It's on YouTube, so you can check that out. I've done it short in a while. So yeah.
That's great. I want to come to the set of the Willowbrook tapes. I could probably add some old, I'll get some creepy old footage that I have from our shooting and hand it over.
Yeah, I'll let them know. That's cool. Awesome.
All right. Mike, it's great talking to you. Love talking about Staten Island. And I hope we're going to get to make a movie sometime soon.
Let me know.